Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rachele, Lawton, and I'm the chair of the Reading and Language Department at CCBC. I'm also the director of CCBC's National Endowment for the Humanities Challenge Grant, which will allow us to establish a Center for Global Education in the Hilton Mansion here on the Catonsville campus. Today, we have an exciting opportunity to hear from Mr. Alan Wilson, Chairman, President, and CEO of McCormick & Company, who will give a talk called Flavor and Culture: How McCormick is Growing Globally. This program is brought to you today by the Murthy Reihl Lecture Series, which was established through an endowment and is designed to support CCBC's Global Education program. Global Education at CCBC provides a comprehensive, interdisciplinary, and holistic approach to education in the 21st century, which involves incorporating global perspectives and intercultural competencies into curricula, professional development, and programming. Each year, we aspire to offer globally themed events to CCBC and the larger community, and we're very grateful to Ms. Sheela Murthy, whose generosity has made this lecture series possible. So I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about Sheela Murthy today. She's the president and founder of the Murthy Law Firm in Maryland, which is a leader in the field of immigration law. At the Murthy Law Firm, outstanding immigration representation and a deep commitment to humanity go hand in hand. Ms. Murthy has received numerous awards and recognitions for her professional achievements, her leadership, and her philanthropic work, and she currently serves as the honorary chair of the CCBC Mansion Global Education Fundraising Committee. Ms. Murthy was also a close friend to Donna Reihl, who many of you probably knew and loved, CCBC's former Dean of Community Education. Her loss in 2011 was felt by many in the CCBC community and beyond. Dr. Reihl joined CCBC in 1997 as coordinator of Allied Health and Human Services. Later, she served as director of the Owings Mills and Hunt Valley Centers, and then she became the Dean of Community Education. She had a strong history of teaching, coordinating and developing programs, supporting nonprofits, and serving her community in multiple ways. Dr. Reihl was also the recipient of numerous awards, and she was named Woman of the Year by the Baltimore County Commission for Women. She's been described by many as an amazing person who could brighten a room with her positive energy, and she was also a strong supporter of global education. Ms. Murthy established the Murthy Reihl Lecture Series in order to celebrate Donna Reihl and to honor her memory. Its intent is to open the minds and hearts of college students to the importance of global issues, irrespective of where they choose to work and what they choose to do. Ms. Murthy believes that the future success of our next generation depends on students realizing the importance of a global economy and embracing it. So now you will have the pleasure of hearing from Ms. Sheela Murthy, who will introduce our speaker, Mr. Alan Wilson, today. Thank you, and please enjoy what promises to be a very fascinating and engaging talk.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wonderful. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here to introduce Alan, who is, as I just described to Dr. K, as you call her, your president, a real sweetheart. And before I just start to go over briefly the bio, which many of you may have already read, so I thought I would spice it up with some of my personal experiences with both him and Wendy. The friendship that I enjoyed with Donna Reihl was truly touching. I understand that Tim, her husband, is somewhere around. Tim, oh, Tim, I didn't recognize you in your fancy suit, man. It's great to have you here, and I do miss her, and as I was driving in to meet with both Alan and Dr. K this morning, I was almost going to start tearing up and getting really emotional, because like all relationships, when you lose a good friend, you realize how transitory life can be, and then you go through this guilt of things that you could have done or should have done and spent more time, and you go through all of this in your life, and I know it's always too little too late, but hopefully she knows that many of us did love her and care about her, and that hopefully she will live forever. through the series and through the talk and through each one of you being here to learn and broaden your minds and hearts, because she was such a beautiful, broad, caring, generous, amazing human being. She was the chair of the Girl Scouts of Central Maryland right before I became the chair. She was a terrific friend, a great community person, and I miss her truly, but I'm hoping that we can continue her memory forever with this lecture series where both our names are joined together, hopefully for eternity. Thank you. I'm not sure I had planned to say all that. I don't know where it came out from, but I guess, as they say, your heart always speaks louder than your brain. Alan Wilson. I've actually had the pleasure and the privilege of introducing Alan Wilson at least once before for the United Way Tocqueville Society breakfast. But more than his resume and more than what all of you can read, and I will happily share that with you, both Alan and Wendy are like incredibly kind, generous people. They're family people. Maryland's been their home. Alan's climbed the corporate ladder, has reached the top, but his kindness, generosity, and humility will really shine out. When I looked at the topic for this morning, I thought, flavor and culture, how McCormick is growing globally. That is so Alan-esque. Because Alan, when he was asked to talk on any subject today, and he could have talked about a lot of things, he wants to use the time and the opportunity to showcase this company that he has been such an integral part of for such a long time. McCormick has truly been a gem for us in Maryland. We are blessed to have a company that is both a global player and yet a very local player in terms of its, as I was saying earlier, sort of the big Fortune 500 companies know about it, everybody knows about it on the stock exchanges, and yet the small ma and pa and the restaurants and people. So it's a really nice blend of the big and the small, a blend of regional, local, because it's right here in our backyard, and yet being a global player with having opened, we were just talking about the big shop that they're going to open a plant in Wuhan, China. And when I was in Wuhan last year, I immediately thought of Alan and McCormick and all of that, because they are really growing globally. I understand 40% of their sales, global sales, come from Europe. And so it's a real testament that it's not just a household name, it's rock solid, very, very. How many of you here have used McCormick spices? And it's, okay. I was going to say, those of you who haven't raised your hand, you might not want to be here. But as you see, Alan has served as the chairman, the president, and CEO of McCormick since 2008. The company closed last year in 2012, well, it's 2 years ago, I guess, with a record $4 billion in sales. Since he joined McCormick in 1993, so it's over 2 decades at this point. Amazing, amazing. You don't hear of people staying 2 decades in any company, especially in this day and age. He's led different organizations from supply chain to business units. He's held many executive management roles, including president of Tubed Products, president of McCormick Canada, global. I know most of us think Canada is the 51st state or whatever. But it is a different country. President of U.S. Consumer Foods, President of North America, and President and Chief Operating Officer of McCormick. Again, nice slow climb, knows so many sectors, really knows the company inside out, and a true loyal, diehard fan of McCormick. Before joining McCormick, he worked at Procter & Gamble, who of course was also based here in Hunt Valley area. And I was in Cincinnati as well, where he held progressively responsible positions in product supply, procurement, and manufacturing. He's graduated from the University of Tennessee. I'm not going to tell which year, though it is in your resume. Bachelor of Science in Communications. He's a terrific communicator, as you will hear soon. He attended school on an ROTC scholarship, and following college, served as a U.S. Army captain. Talk about good habits, rigor, systems, processes. With tours in the United States, United Kingdom, and Germany. He serves on many, many boards, including the Grocery Manufacturers He serves on the Business Roundtable for Education, so he's very committed. The company is very committed to education and to serving globally. And he serves also on the Board of Visitors of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and is past president of the University of Tennessee, Knoxville Alumni Board. Maybe we need to get him on that board or that committee for CCBC now, Dr. K. Yoo-hoo! How many of you want to support that? Okay. You know, as we were saying earlier, people forget how big CCBC is. It's got 70,000 students. It's got more than any of the universities in the region, yet people look at it as a smaller community college. And I think having someone like Alan would just take it up a few notches here, put people on the spot when there's several hundred witnesses, right? He received the University of Tennessee's Accomplished Alumni Award in 2010. It is my eminent pleasure, honor, to welcome Alan to the stage to share his comments and views. Thank you so much.
Boy, Sheela's a hard act to follow. When Sheela asks you to do something, it's pretty hard to say no. And when Sheela invited me to come and talk today, I was really pleased. I got to do something today that I've never done. I landed a plane at Martin State Airport. Fortunately for everybody, it was on the simulator here, which was really cool. As I was coming in, I had help with speed and direction and everything else. So all I had to do was kind of look at it, but it was really cool. Something I've never done. I have to start looking at flight training. I thought today, let's see if I can figure out how to advance this. I'm frozen. Let's see if this works. There we go. There we go. I thought I'd talk a little bit about McCormick and about what culture is all about, and then why that's important in building and driving the company. And so I'm really proud, and this is something that you'll see throughout of what McCormick's culture is, because the culture that for a company that's been around 125 years, and we were founded in 1889 in downtown Baltimore with the founder and 3 employees, and they started by selling root beer extract door to door. And you think about almost every great company that you hear, and it starts with generally someone that has a vision and then takes that vision and expands it across and builds it and grows it. And I'm just fortunate to be in the position that I am, because I'm really standing on the shoulders of everybody that went ahead of us. But you think about a young entrepreneur starting just selling stuff door to door. And from that, it's grown into the company that it is today. We should be something over $4.5 billion in sales this year, and about $10 billion in market cap. When I joined the company in 1993, as Sheela said, if that day I'd bought 1,000 shares of McCormick, it would have cost me just under $11,000. If you had that share today, it'd be a little over $71,000. And so and stock market's up and down, and it's never smooth. The market's always seeking equilibrium. But if you had made that investment 20 years ago, and then went to sleep and checked your statement at the end of the first quarter of this year, you'd find that you had $71,000 in shares, and you'd have a check for almost 20% of that in your dividend. So it's that kind of investment, one of those great buy and hold investments. Now, as I said, the company's been around for 125 years, and there's a lot in the history and a lot of cool stories as to how we got where we are. But what I really want to think about and talk about is who we are today and where we're going into the future. But in order to be able to build and grow, you've got to start with a culture and really understand who you are, because that's what really drives success with the company. And so what we have here are the 5 pillars that we really stand for. The things that make McCormick who we are, and then tells us where we're going, what our strategies are, how we operate, what our values are all kind of wrapped up in these 5 pillars that we launched. Now, when I became CEO now almost 7 years ago, we started an effort to try to identify our pillars because we talked about the company very inconsistently. We had at that point, almost 120 years of heritage, and it meant something to people differently in China than it meant in India, than it meant in the US, than it meant in even Canada. And so what I wanted to do is unify our whole direction around what the company stood for. And so we discovered these pillars. We didn't invent them. We didn't hire a consultant to come in and launch a big branding initiative. We asked our employees to talk about, through a lot of focus groups, what the company meant. And this is what we discovered. And it starts with a passion for flavor. We're really in a great business. We're in a business that's building and growing around the world. We have the second fastest growing category in spices in the world, in food. And we're only second to soy sauce. And so we're in a great business, and we're a category leader. We've got of packaged spices around the world, we have about 20% market share. Now in our big markets, we tend to have more about 50% market share. We're 50% in the US, we're about 50% in the UK, we're about 70% in France. But as we've built and grown, there are certain markets we're in, certain markets we're not. But it all starts with a passion for flavor. And why is that important? It was important for us to talk about that with our employees because everybody wants to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. Whether you're working on a manufacturing line or you're driving a forklift in the warehouse or you're paying an invoice, people really want to understand, we all do, where do I fit in this big picture? And it starts with our passion for flavor. And that's why I think we're in a really cool business, because if you think about how relationships get built and your memories and what makes a region special, and I get the opportunity, much like Sheela, to travel all over the world, and the first thing people want to do when I go to visit their country or their region is introduce me to their local food. And that's the really, really cool and interesting part. I was this weekend watching a cooking show on TV. You can imagine I probably do that a little bit. And there was a Southern chef on, and he said, you know, here in the South, we show our love by cooking for you. And I thought about that, and that's not just the South, that's almost everywhere. We show our love by cooking for people. And so whether it's in the Mid-Atlantic, where Old Bay is our flavor of choice, and it's something that everybody knows what it is, and we put it on French fries, and we put it on corn, we put it in mashed potatoes, and we put it on eggs. Most people know it that goes on crabs and shrimp. But here, it's such a big part of who we are and what we do. And if you go to a different part of the country, you'll find a different regional cuisine. The interesting thing that I find all around the world is that the core ingredients are actually pretty similar. You start with something that is pretty core, but there's a twist on it that makes it unique. So when I go to Morocco, I'm still starting with a lot of the core ingredients like cumin and garlic and onions and that sort of thing, but there may be some cinnamon that's in the Moroccan food. If I go to India, there's going to be cardamom in it. And so there's kind of that core, but there's really only about 40 core spices around the world, but they get used in so many different ways. Now you can argue with me because I saw this statistic actually again this weekend. The island of Cyprus grows over 200 different herbs. And by the way, if you're not buying McCormick, some of those may end up in your oregano. We only sell, when we sell oregano, real oregano. We just did an analysis on some cheap stuff, and it was about 30% oregano and 70% other stuff. So if you want to be sure you're getting what you're paying for, buy McCormick. But I can talk about that too. The second and a really important part of our culture is the power of people. And if you're at all familiar with the company, McCormick was founded in, as we said, 1889 by Willoughby McCormick. There's an interesting story. Willoughby passed away in 1931 while he was in New York trying to raise money to keep the company alive. The company was losing money and going bankrupt, and he was actually in New York meeting with bankers trying to keep the company alive. And he passed away, and his young nephew, Charlie P. McCormick, C.P. McCormick, took over the company. I think he was in his early 30s, and he had worked for the company a long time. But he had a really different philosophy around how companies should be managed. And he believed very much in the power of people. And so he took his experiment to the bankers and said, what we're going to do is build a different kind of company. If you think about the 30s, this was really controversial because companies were very autocratically managed. It wasn't everybody's got a voice. Now we understand the power of teamwork and building consensus and building support. But at that point, it was one person made the decisions and it all flowed down. CP believed that by harnessing the power, the best ideas, and unleashing and allowing everybody to achieve their fullest potential, that the company could be most successful. And so rather than do what a lot of companies were doing during the Depression, CP went to the employees and said, you know, I'm going to increase salaries by 10%, and I'm going to cut the work week from, at the time, 56 hours to 48 hours. And if we're successful, I'm going to share that success with you. Well, the end of the story of all that is the company went from losing money, and because of all the productivity ideas that the employees had, to making money and being able to compete pretty effectively in the Great Depression. That created the foundation of what McCormick kind of stands for and what the culture of McCormick is today. And that particular culture is true all over the world. Now, that sounds pretty cool, and the Depression was a long time ago. Most of us weren't alive during then. I wasn't. But it kind of informed our thinking in 2008. Because if you think about what happened in 2008, I just got this job in January. In August of that year, we closed on the largest acquisition in the history of the company. We'd spent about $700 million to buy a company, Lowry's, and a small business in Canada. And we closed on that business on September 2nd of 2008. Well, if you think about what happened, in September of 21st of 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. So the credit markets all changed, and we were doing what a lot of companies are doing. We were borrowing every day for the cash needs that we had for that period. And we kind of stepped back and we did what everybody else did, and we said, okay, let's put our game plan together. If the credit markets dry up, and if our consumer base dries up, if people don't have jobs and they aren't shopping, then we need a contingency plan. So we did all the stuff that probably every company did. We looked at, should we keep matching the 401k? Should we cut bonuses? Should we cut salaries? Should we restructure and cut lots of heads and that kind of thing? And we said, so we put that into a book on the side, and we said, okay, if we have to do it, we know what we're going to be forced to do. But let's play it by ear. Let's see what happens in the market. So we continued with our normal salary increases. We gave the same increase that year that we gave continuously. We said bonuses are kind of self-correcting. If our profits if we don't beat last year in profit, we don't pay bonuses, and that's kind of self-correcting. So if we don't earn them, we won't pay them. But the outcome of all that is, through all that period, and we were on the phone every day working with banks to make sure we had our cash needs covered, we continued our salary increases, we continued to hire, we continued to promote. We ended up that year with double-digit earnings and sales growth in the 6-7% range, met our objectives. So the key of that is your culture and your values inform who you are, no matter what the circumstances. And that doesn't say we don't have to make tough decisions. We don't reorganize. We don't consolidate plants. We don't enter and exit different businesses, and that's a piece of it. But it also informs what it is that we want to stand for. We're rational, but it's a part of our culture that says we want to be in this for the long term, and that's really what we stand for. That third pillar, the taste you trust, is kind of comes out a little bit of what I talked about earlier. We believe we're in an industry that has it's a pretty high risk business from a food and product safety standpoint. So the taste you trust means when you buy a bottle of McCormick spices or one of our flavors, it's going to be what we tell you it is, and it's going to taste the same every time you buy it, as long as you don't keep it on the shelf for 15 years. which, by the way, I bet you do. Need to change them about every 2 years if you're a real cook. But if you think about that, there have been more than 70 recalls since 2005 in the spice industry for things like salmonella or those kinds of bad stuff that creates. McCormick has never had one in 125 years, and it kind of starts with that tenet. If you ever visit our corporate headquarters, we created the old tea house that used to be in the downtown headquarters when we were on Light Street, and it says over the fireplace, "Make the best, someone will buy it." And that's what the company was really founded on, is making the best. So we recognize we have to provide that value, and we have to provide that great flavor that everybody expects, and we have to provide that food safety, but it really does come back to, we're going to be focused on making the best. So that means that we'll decide, and that informs your company strategy, that in some cases there'll be certain segments of the market that we're just not going to be able to serve. There's going to be certain customers that we aren't going to be able to serve, and so that kind of informs who it is and what it is and what we stand for. And so you can get a sense of what we're doing with building these pillars of what we are. Inspiring healthy choices is one of those things that kind of starts as a part of our global crisis. We have an obesity crisis both in the U.S. and around the developing world, and what we recognize is we're selling products that help you replace, and everybody knows what makes food taste good. The reason you like food, it's pretty simple. You get the right mixture of fat, salt, and sugar. And it's that blend, whether it's ice cream, whether it's chips, whatever it is, fat, salt, and sugar are the things that accelerate those taste buds and make them taste great. Well, we recognize by putting spices in, you can replace fat, salt, and sugar in your diet and create much healthier meals. And by cooking at home, by preparing your own meals, you know what you're putting in. And so I get asked a lot of times, you make Lowry seasoned salt, and Old Bay has a lot of salt and everything in it. Your sodium issue is not what you put on at the table. It's the processed foods, the breads, the cheeses, and all the other stuff that you eat. And so we've done a study with Hopkins in schools in Baltimore, and we're able to show that if you use more spices, you can get people to eat about half the amount of salt. We just had a study that was shared recently, and I saw it on the Today Show last week, and they were quoting the study from the McCormick Science Institute, and basically people went from consuming over 35 milligrams of sodium a day to under 1,500 by learning to cook and preparing their own meals and using more spices. That's good for us, but it's also good for people. But the cool thing about that, and we weren't even trying to test this because it wasn't part of the study, but people lost about 2% of their body weight. Their blood pressure dropped by about 15 points diastolic. I'm sure there's a medical professional who'll get the word right, but it had the side benefits of not only reducing sodium in the diet, but also reducing weight and blood pressure, which is really positive. The fifth pillar is delivering high performance, and that's something I'm really proud of. I talked earlier about the investment in McCormick, long-term being a great investment, but you could look at that same investment over the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 20, or the last 30 years. Our average annual return is going to be about a 13% total shareholder return. So the stock's going to go up between 10 and 11%, and we have about a 2% dividend. So every year, over time, you're going to get that, historically, get that kind of return. Now, I have to give my safe harbor statement that past returns are no guarantee of future success or any of that stuff. But the reality is this has been a great company because we're focused not only on delivering those things that I talked about up front, but also performing. And I remind everybody every day that we can't be the culture that we have. We can't provide the good jobs. We can't be the kind of corporate citizen we want to be unless we're delivering on the top and the bottom line. And so I'm really proud of that. When I did my annual shareholder meeting in 2009, our stock was $29.28. And by the way, it had dropped 12% the day before. Yesterday, it closed about a little over $71. And we've been up and down. You can look at it over years, and I wasn't really happy with our share performance in the last 12 months. But even last year, we had a soft year. The shareholders still got about a 13% annual return. So that's something we've been pretty committed to. Now, as I said, I'll give you just a little flavor of who we are. That was really the who we are. And I know we want to get to questions, so I'll breeze through some of this other stuff pretty quickly. We've got 10,000 employees worldwide. We manufacture in 25 countries. We're about 60% U.S., about 40% international. We're about 60% consumer business. That's the stuff you see in the grocery stores. We're about 40% industrial products, and those industrial products are everything from the snack seasonings that we sell to Frito-Lay and other snack customers. They're the condiments that we sell to McDonald's and Yum brands. We're the coatings that we sell to KFC and that sort of thing. So let me ask again, the question was asked earlier, how many people use McCormick spices? I'll bet you if you had oatmeal with cinnamon this morning, or if you had an Egg McMuffin and put pepper on it, or if you had a bag of chips somewhere today, you'll eat a McCormick product, whether it's our consumer products or our industrial products. And we're over 110 countries. Now we're not McCormick all over the world. We have tended to believe the strategy is people want their local flavors, and they want their local brands in flavor because there's such a strong tie to your region and your local flavors. So when we were able to buy Ducros about 15 years ago, Ducros is a market leader in France, 70% market share. We kept the Ducros brand rather than rebrand it McCormick. We're Vahiné, which is our dessert line in France. Schwartz is the leader in Europe. Cuisinart is our basmati rice business in India. Bouti is the market leader in Switzerland. Thai Kitchen, you know here. Margot is our leader in Portugal. Billy B is about 60% share of the honey business in Canada. Camus is a market leader not only in Poland but also in Russia. Galeo is a price brand in Poland and Russia, and Ultra Ducros is our new joint venture in Turkey. So it gets you kind of a sense of who we are, but our strategy, our mission, is to save your world from boring food. There's a lot of people out there eating naked chicken, and we want to make sure you're not doing that, because there's so many things you can do. You can take that core piece of chicken, and you can put some basil and oregano and some garlic on it with a little tomato, and you got Italian. You can put some cumin and pepper and red pepper on it, and you got Mexican. You can put an herbal blend, and you've got Tuscan. You can put a cowboy rub on it, and that's got a kind of a savory blend, and you've got a completely different meal. So if you're kind of trying to figure out what's for dinner, you can start with your core beef, chicken, salmon, whatever that is, and just change the flavor up. You don't have to get in a rut and all that. Now I'll talk just a second before I start to take questions around what the culture is and why I believe it's important that you spend so much time on people understanding what your mission is, what your strategies are, and what your culture is all about, because it's all about engagement and about driving engagement from a talented group of people. And you do that by being very, very clear on what the purpose of the organization is, what passion and you bring to it, making sure you got the right people, and then finally performance. And I talked about that. Now we win because we're in great categories. We lead in those categories, and I've talked a little bit about that. We believe it's important that we have thought leadership in our categories. We aren't going to be the market leader if we're not the thought leader. And we want to bring that innovation and all that, but we've got great brands and strong customer relationships. One of our core strategies is consumer and customer intimacy, and that's understanding what the consumer is looking for, understanding what the customer is looking for, and then meeting those needs and delighting them in every chance that we get. And then great execution, because we've got employees who believe in us. Now, this is from a Gallup survey in 2013, and what they found is they talked to people, is that 52% of employees identified themselves as disengaged. Another 18% identified themselves as actively disengaged. And only 30% identified themselves as fully engaged. Now, I've looked at engagement in a really different way because there's different levels of engagement. And if you kind of walk away saying that you feel pretty good because you got a 30% engaged employee base, well, that's not good enough. Our numbers, by the way, are higher than that. We have about a 65% active engagement, but there's really 4 levels of engagement. There's actively disengaged, which are the people that suck the life and the energy out of the room. They're the people that always have something bad to say, nothing's really right. Frankly, if you're running an organization, those are the people that you need to get rid of right away because they are distracting and demotivating to other employees. There are people that are compliant. They show up and they meet the minimum standards and they'll be on time to work. They'll leave as soon as they can possibly get out, but they're showing up to gain a paycheck. And if you kind of look across your organizations, you'll kind of figure out who those people are. There are people that are contributing, and those are the people that are pretty good, and they do what they're good at, they're collaborative, and they're making a contribution, but they aren't necessarily actively engaged. And then there are people that are committed, and those are the people that take initiative, that bring passion and bring creativity to your organization, and those are the people you really need to build at. So if you look at the Gallup survey of people, the 30% that identified them as actually engaged, that 30% includes people that are contributing. There's a very, very small percentage of the organizations where people are actually committed. And as a leader, I view my job is to raise my committed percentages and get people really committed to what it is that we're trying to do, because without that, you can't be successful. Now, I show that not because I think it's really important, but also for students, as you're thinking about what you're going to do with your life, and you're thinking about where you're going to be and what you're going to do and what kind of job you're going to have, I really encourage you. You're going to spend probably the same amount of time or a little bit more if you're committed versus if you're compliant. You're going to get so much more out of your work experience, and you're going to contribute so much more, and you're going to be so much more successful if you just change your mental attitude to join that committed phase. And it doesn't matter what you do. I hear great ideas when I'm walking through our plants from people that are working on lines with ways of improving what we do. I hear the same thing when I'm talking to people in our accounts payable that I hear from our marketing teams. In fact, when I do, every couple of weeks, I sit down with 20 to 30 employees at all different levels, and we just kind of have a round table about anything they want to talk about. I get some really great marketing ideas from people that are not in the marketing department. People in the marketing department hate it because I always take them back to them. But it's because people really care. And as you're thinking about what you want to do and what kind of career you want, be committed. That's kind of the biggest watchword. None of us show up, start a job by saying, oh gosh, I'm going to do a crummy job. You know, us leaders kind of suck the energy and the life out of them. And it's our job to make sure that we're not doing that we give everybody the opportunity to achieve their fullest potential. And that we're honest with people. Not everybody, I've got an organization of 10,000 people, not everybody is going to be the CEO. We've had 8 CEOs in 125 years. So I was lucky enough, like Sheela said, to kind of work my way through, and I hit it at the time that fortunately I was the right age when my predecessor was getting ready to retire. If I had not done a good job, I wouldn't be in the running. But if I were 3 or 4 years older or 3 or 4 years younger, I probably wouldn't have gotten the shot. But there's a lot of great roles in a lot of places that you can contribute and be a big part of success, and it'll make your life a lot better and a lot happier if you do. So having a purpose really is important. It's what really is key for every one of us, and sometimes I give a different talk, which is about career success, and fundamentally there's only a couple of things that I think are important, not only for career success but for personal happiness, and that's have something to do that you care about, have somebody that you love, and have a goal. Have something to do, somebody to care for, and an objective, a goal to keep moving ahead. And that's, I'll end it now because I know we want to get to some questions, but that's kind of what I'd like to leave you with. Understand what your purpose is, understand what the purpose of your organization is, and then contribute to it. Make it a winner. So I appreciate the chance to be with you. I do, before I stop, want to add one quick commercial. As part of our 125th anniversary, and there's somewhere, either at the reception in the room, we've got samples of Old Bay and Montreal steak spice, and then little cards about the flavor of Together. And what we're doing with the flavor of Together is we're trying to collect 1.25 million flavor stories. And for every story that we collect, either online or through video or ever how, you can go on the website and figure it out, we're going to donate $1 to United Way's hunger programs around the world. So I would really encourage you. We have about 250,000 flavor stories collected so far, and we're doing it all year. So I would encourage you to do that. Ask your friends and family to do it. We've got everything from people and their experiences in growing up in different countries, or a certain food that their grandmother made, or a holiday tradition, or something they're trying to experiment with. I'd really encourage you to share those stories, and appreciate the chance to talk to you. Thanks. Thank you for the question. The question is, does McCormick still have the junior board of directors? That's what kind of grew out of that whole Power of People initiative. And what that is our internal development program. So we pull groups of people from different functions and put them together on teams, and they work on projects that help benefit the company. We kind of felt that it was getting a little tired, and so a few years ago we decided to renew it, and so what we've done is taken that multiple management process is what we call it, and we've created regional boards and one global board. Now the global board is one level below my executive team, so it's one level below the management committee, top 5 people in the company, and we've got people from around the world that are working on big strategic projects that we would normally hire a Bain or McKinsey or somebody like that to do. Then we've got the regional boards in the Americas and Asia and in Europe, and then we've got the local boards, and we've got 28 local boards that teach people to do project management, make presentations, work as a team. So we still have that. It's a big part of our culture. Yeah, thank you. The question is, there was an article in the Baltimore Sun and a lot of other papers last week on whether McCormick may be relocating our Sparks facility. What we're doing, and the report was probably a little preliminary, we do have a study going where we've got 5 different buildings on our Hunt Valley campus, and those of you who may not be familiar, McCormick actually used to be in the properties business and developed the Hunt Valley Business Park as one of the many business parks they developed around the world. There we've got 5 different division, corporate, technical center, all different buildings, 3 plants, and then we've got a distribution center out in Bell Camp. What we're doing is a study to figure out whether it makes sense to put all those facilities into one. It may mean that we move corporate headquarters, which is one of our buildings. We've got about 200 people in the building, and Sparks in with some of the other buildings. But that's the study. We're a long way from making any decisions. We're not planning to do a big relocation project. We want to be as convenient as we can for our employee base. We've got about 2,000 people in the Hunt Valley Business Park. About half of those are in manufacturing, about half are in offices. So we're really talking about that office piece. But our plan right now is to try to get everybody in one building. And we're a couple of years away from physically being able to do that. Well, the McCormick question, 5-10 years, is I think is a great one. We spend a lot of time thinking about that. In fact, I have an initiative going on right now. One of our strategic global MM board projects, multiple management board projects, is identifying the consumer of 2020. I didn't want to make it 2050 because I want it to be really close in and actionable because it's so dynamic. But where I see is our strategy is pretty straightforward. We've got geographic expansion. and because we're in such a great growing category, we're going to be pretty close to standing for flavor in whatever we do. So our acquisitions are either going to be in our core spice and seasoning business or one of our adjacent businesses of dessert products. And we see a lot of runway for that, at least for the next 5 years. And we'll be growing. I think we'll be more global. Our objective is to be, today, we're about 20% in emerging markets. Our objective is to be about 30. I don't see us being 50, but I do see that. I think in 5 years that China will potentially be, in fact, this year China will be our second largest individual market outside the United States. So we'll be much bigger there. We have an objective for a much bigger business. I think our mix of business is going to shift from, we're about 60-40 consumer to industrial. Over time, we expect that to be more like a 70-30 mix. It's moved from 55-45 when I became CEO to 60-30 today, 60-40 today. In terms of Alan in 15 years, I hope to be cheering from the sidelines and making and seeing the success that my next two management teams put together. But I've got clear objectives on what that is. I've got some things I want to do. Our population mix is very similar to our employee base is very similar to the population base. So we have about 30% of our workforce are millennials. So we've got, like every company, we've got everything from computer engineers to mechanics to electricians to Ph.D.s in chemistry to lawyers to marketing people. So we've got a broad array of almost every discipline that a business has. We have good training programs. We have tended to be more of a higher some level of experience than necessarily I don't think, and this is one of the things that I'll criticize the company, I don't think we're great at hiring kids directly out of college and training them. We kind of are a little bit better when we get somebody that's got a couple of years of experience. We're trying to change that, but we are working very hard on it. We've got global opportunities everywhere. We're building and growing in China and Latin America and Eastern Europe and Western Europe and Africa. So if somebody's interested in a global experience, whether you actually go and live and work in those places is a question. We get a lot of people that go and spend 6 or 8 months on a project team in, say, I was on a plane 2 weeks ago. I was flying to London. One of our employees was in the lounge and he was going to India for an 8-month project to kick off an initiative in our IT area. So we've got a lot of those global kinds of experiences in pretty much any function. Like I said, we have 2,000 people in Maryland. We've got about 3,000 across the U.S. and another 7,000 all over the world. The first thing we're looking for, kind of easy criteria, is do you want the job? Can you do the job, and do you fit? And I think any company in some degree is going to look at that. So in terms of do you want the job, I believe if you come with the right attitude, then and you want to learn and you have an enthusiasm and a natural curiosity, that's something that I believe really drives a lot of success. The can you do the job, it depends on whether you have the right skills for the job that you're looking at. And so some of those are technical skills, some of those are education, some of those are work experience. So if we're looking for somebody that is going to run, say, a sensory lab, we're looking for either a food science or a chemistry degree to be able to do that. If we're looking for somebody that's going to work in our finance area, we're going to be looking for some level of accounting or those kinds of skills. So that kind of depends. And then finally, the fit is are you the kind of person that can work on a team? And most people walk in and say, yeah, I'm a people person, I like to work on teams. But we find only about 30% of the people that we interview actually fit that criteria. And so that's kind of fundamentally what we're looking for. I believe, and I said this to Dr. K earlier, if you have a great attitude and a strong work ethic, You can learn anything you need to learn, but it kind of starts with that. The people that I see work are the people that work well together with other people. And collaboration is such a big part of who we are and what we do that's that fit. We're dealing in every currency in every country we're operating in, so we're in 110 plus countries, and so we're dealing with those currencies all the time. As a U.S. business, as a U.S.-based business, I believe that we need a strong and stable dollar. I think that's something that I believe pretty strongly in monetary policy. You know, but there's a lot that goes with that, where you know you could ask if we were having this conversation a year and a half ago, you might have asked me, do you think the euro is going to survive? I think it would certainly change our plans, but because of the way that that businesses are set up and incented, that particular issue wouldn't change my plans in China very much. I'm generating an awful lot of cash in China. I can't bring that cash out of China, so it's better for me to continue to. We were able to bring some of it out. We bank in Hong Kong, and so there's a long story. But fundamentally, we'll continue to keep investing. And typically, what we're doing is generating funds in the markets where we're operating to be able to make continual investments there. And our strategy is a little different than a lot of multinationals. We tend to manufacture where we sell. So about 92% of everything that we sell in the United States, we manufacture in Hunt Valley, Maryland. Almost everything we sell in France, we manufacture in a city, one of the cities right around Avignon. Almost everything that we sell in Poland and in Russia, we manufacture in Poland. In China, virtually everything we sell in China gets sold in China, and everything we sell in China gets made in China. So that's been our strategy. Remember, we're kind of low dollar value items, and so we can get eaten up pretty quickly with freight. So we tend to be manufacturing as close as possible. Even though our products are grown all over the world, most of our products are grown within a couple of degrees of the equator. Where we manufacture and where we sell is pretty much the same thing. That gives us a bit of a natural hedge.
Before we finish, though, I would like to turn things over very briefly to our president, Dr. Kurtinitis, who will say a few words and present Mr. Wilson with a gift.
Okay, Alan, this was wonderful. This was wonderful. This was actually the story, yes, so well told, of a powerful global company working hard to deliver high-quality product and yet keep the common touch. That's a wonderful lesson for all of us. Now, I do have to present you with something, but before I do, let me thank all of you for joining us today. This is the second special lecture that now is going to be part of a continuing story of our global education program, and I certainly want to acknowledge Sheela Murthy. You can tell what a wonderful friend of the college that she is, and what a wonderful friend of our Donna Reihl she has been to establish the endowment to have this lectures. But also, Tim, you're looking great, but I hope you're feeling awfully proud today of this wonderful way to remember our Donna. And also a special thanks really to Rachele and all of the faculty who are working hard to actually make sure that we at CCBC pay attention to the global imperative that we must share with our students. So, my friend, if you would stand right here, two things I want to give you. There's a lot of orange paper here. Okay. All right, first, you see, it isn't every day that we at CCBC have the honor of a Fortune 500 company chair come to our college. So what I'd like to give you, it's in this box and it's beautiful. It's a captain's clock for a captain of industry.
Thank you very much.
I didn't know quite what was in here, but we also have the pleasure today of christening a budding pilot, albeit he landed that plane in our aviation lab. And Doug, if you're here, thank you for not letting him crash.
Thank you.
So we have a CCBC hat and a CCBC shirt because now you can say, I am CCBC, along with the rest of us.
Thank you so much.